Welcome everyone in Nigeria and the rest of the world. This is State of the Nation. I am Gimba Umar. Right behind me, data feeds is coming through on all our social media platforms in one place simultaneously. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimba Umar CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation. The war on corruption may have suffered a setback, going by the reports of Transparency International, which puts public sector corruption perception index, the CPI, at 28 over 100 in 2017, and with a rank of 148 out of 180 countries surveyed. Victor Oche is a lawyer and former Speaker, Delta State House of Assembly. He joins me from our Abuja studios. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on State of the Nation at this time. What was your immediate thoughts when you heard of the Transparency International CPI figures?
Well, good evening, viewers, and thank you, Gimba, for having me. My immediate thought, first and foremost, when I heard it, was the fact that, 148, and that may have been the slip back down the line. But there again, when I had to look deeply at what happened in 2016 and in 2018, I realized that in 2016, that was the index for 2015, what we had was 136 out of 168 countries that were evaluated. And then in 2017, released in 2018, you're evaluating 180 countries and we are 148. If I try to do a little of mathematics, we had 136, we're at 136 and we had 168 countries. And you take that off from 136, so we're like 32 places. And if you come back to 2018, where 180 countries were evaluated, we're at 148. So take that off again, and we are still at 32. So we have not really moved, basically looking at it from that standpoint. Then again, if you look at it, in 2017, or 2016 rather, we're at 27, and now we're at 28. We have moved just a point. So I really don't understand when we say we are not making progress. Progress has been made, and I think if you look at all the factors that stands to militate against the fight against corruption, you will appreciate the much that the Nigerian government is doing in moving up the corruption perception index. And don't forget, Gimba, this is just a perception. There are 1,001 criteria for you to be able to use in assessing them. And they are not the same around all the countries being assessed.
Permit me to just come in here, because yes, I agree with you that it is a perception, but these figures have dropped consistently from 2015, where Nigeria scored 26 over 100, in 2016, 27 over 100 in 2017, and 28 over 100 now. That's what we're looking at. Does that decline in figures suggest to you that progress is being made at all by the government to root out corruption? As you remember, the president, on assumption of office, said that we must kill corruption or corruption will kill Nigeria.
Okay, Gimba, let's look at it this way. If we go back in time, in 2015 or 2016, when it's been assessed, and we're 27, and now it's 28, I want us to just look at the kind of things that may have happened over the period. Now, the Corruption Perception Index, just look at the points, how you arrive at them. What is your data collection process in Nigeria? How free and fair is our data collection processes? Now, these are impressions written by people, inclusive ease of doing business, the various institutions that fight the corruption. A whole lot of things stand. These are parameters used in measuring the public policy on corruption. Now, you and I will agree, the agencies or institutions that are out there to fight corruption, the anti-graft agencies, if they are allowed to run maximally how they should run, then we should have little or no problems. But we have issues every day, even right inside the institution. There's the fighting within themselves. Besides the infighting, how trained and how prepared are those who are in these institutions? How trained are they to handle the mammoth of corruption issues we have in this country? You also have the judiciary. You may, at some point, you may not blame the judiciary, but because they'll have to deal with what is right before them. But then again, there are bottlenecks by the time our criminal justice system is one that can be manipulated, and at any point in time, you can hold the course of justice over a very long period of time. All these are factors that militate against the fight against corruption. Let's not, close our eyes against all of these factors. They are there, and we live in the real world. You will not now be measuring yourself against countries in Western Europe, for instance, that have well-improved systems. Their data collection processes are very refined. For everything you do, there's a measurement and there's a record of it. How many records do we have in this country? Even criminal records.
I get that point.
In this country, we don't even have them.
But let me quickly come here again. My apologies. Now, this government, in its corruption war, has been unable to, you mentioned, of course, the anti-graft agency has been unable to prosecute a case to drive home its seriousness to fight corruption. Cases like the Maynagate, that one easily comes to mind. The Babachir Lawal investigative panel, whose report is pending at this time, and more recently, over 400 billion naira lost through bribery. And that was also reported by Transparency International. Are these isolated cases that don't necessarily translate into the perception index, do you think?
Well, this isolated cases, Gimba, yes, if you base your perception on the happenings of these isolated cases, it's clear for you, it's easier to say, yes, we are not doing very well in the anti-corruption fight. I'm not going to sit down here and tell you, look, we are doing very, very well. But of course, I do know, first and foremost, the will to identify that corruption is a problem in this country must be given kudos to. Having identified the problem, now to go to the solution, going about solving the corruption issues is another kettle of fish, Gimba. Because the moment you start fighting it, of course it will fight back. We are seeing corruption fight back. The Maynagate is a very embarrassing issue, even to the government. But of course, somehow, some way, it still has to be dealt with. It will not be left there. But there are people high up there who were involved. Now, that is just an isolated case. The 400 billion that went into bribery, with including some institutions, the law enforcement and all of that, are all part beneath the judiciary. The judiciary was indicted, the police was indicted. Now, who do you call? You make these assertions. Can we just know, can you give us names of those who were involved? We are not told. Now, you know, fighting this, you don't fight.
You know, of course, thank you, because it has been established, by and large, it's been established by experts that you begin to have a situation where corruption thrives when the political class takes the jumbo pays and you have the common man on the streets working for his daily bread on a daily basis being paid paltry sums, and that speaks of inequality in the land. That surely is the representation of what we're faced with in this country. So do you think that with that in mind, this government can really fight corruption?
Okay, Gimba, if we go into the argument of what the political class earns vis-a-vis the non-political class, of course, is a far cry. The difference is quite so much that you will never forgive the politicians. But the truth remains that if the institutions are built to be strong, we will be able to ascertain what you earn, and everybody should be able to measure what goes out and what comes in. Now, the man on the street will be happy to go to the same market to the politician and buy whatever he needs, and then goes home and he's happy because he knows the politician is feeling the same pain that he's feeling. But what we have in the country today is a situation where most politicians see politics as a means to an end, which should not be. Politics should be a tool for service. You are coming to render service. But then, if in the course of rendering service, you may be given some kind of privileges, that does not mean that it's something that you must sustain and fight tooth and nail to keep. So this is a major problem. If I go into that topic today, well, I'm a politician. I may not come out unscathed.
All right.
So
if we must stay away from that, let me get your opinion on something totally different, the amendment of the Electoral Act. When INEC relied on its powers under Section 76, 116, 132 and 178 of the Constitution to set a timetable, but the electoral bill recently passed by the National Assembly alters that sequence. Former INEC boss Tahir Jega has condemned the change in sequence. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Gimba, my thoughts on that are very clear. The fact is that as a former speaker, a legislator, I understand very well that of the three arms of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, each time there's a military interregnum in this country, the first arm that suffers is the legislative arm because the constitution is suspended. That means the constitution is supreme and sacrosanct. Therefore, if the National Assembly, in its wisdom, decides to alter sequence, they should have taken cognizance of the fact of Section 76 of the Constitution that empowers INEC to conduct elections at a date appointed by them. I do not see how you're going to divorce the powers of a date to be appointed by a body that is vested with the authority to organize elections and at the same time divorce the order of the elections from them. It is in effect, whatever that Section 25 has been planned, the amendment made to the Electoral Act, to the extent of the inconsistency with Section 76 of the Constitution is null and void. Because I don't see, you cannot give powers, the constitutional powers given to INEC cannot be in any guise taken away from them or withdrawn. That I know clearly.
When this amendment gets to Mr. President, do you think he will assent to it?
Well, I don't know if the president will assent to it, because even before maybe he gets to the president, he probably, maybe he may go to court. And if he doesn't assent to it, of course, it just might be lying down there and nothing will happen. And that will mean a whole electoral reform, the whole process will now go down the drain for one singular reason of an institution trying to prove itself.
We must thank you so much indeed, Victor Oche, the former Speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly and a lawyer as well. I want to thank you so much indeed for your views and your thoughts on those two very important subjects. And when State of the Nation returns, some students of Government Girls Science and Technical College, Dapchi in Yobe State, unaccounted for after an attack by Boko Haram. Stay with us.